good morning. How are you? Cheers. And welcome to my June TBR. My name is Laura. If you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. Today I want to talk about the books that I want to dedicate for the month of June. It is early in the morning, so excuse my appearance. For the month of May, I read 10 books, and I know that's probably not that impressive considering that a lot of people tend to really hit the 10 digits a lot over the months. I just was really busy in the very beginning of the month with finals and grading because hi, if you're new here, I am a PhD candidate in English literature and I'm a teaching assistant for my school to pay for my school. The beginning of the month, I was really busy, but 10 books is also a new goal of mine. Because I'm just so busy with school, I tend to only read what is assigned to me, and that tends to be at most 5 books throughout the semester. So 10 books is actually very impressive for me. I realized that because it's summer, I kind of really want to take it slow with my reading in June, especially because in July, sneak preview heads up, I really love participating in Summerween in my own way. I just read a bunch of horror books in July to celebrate that it's almost October. June doesn't really have a theme other than the fact that I want to read big books in June. So this is a tentative TBR. I might not get to all of them, and that's okay. So anyways, June is the month of going through some of my classics. Here are the books that I want to read for the month of June. The first book that I have, I'm already a couple of pages in. It's June 3rd as I'm recording this. I actually started this yesterday, and that is The Tenet of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. I read Jane Eyre, loved it. I read Wuthering Heights, loved it. They are both sitting on my favorites shelf actually. And I figured it was finally time to get to know their other sister. This is the Wordsworth Classics edition and the second publication, I think it is. Yes, this is the second edition that was written. This is a story in 3 volumes, and it is a series of letters written by our main character to some unknown correspondent. And The Tenet of Wild Hall is a powerful and sometimes violent novel of expectation, love, oppression, sin, religion, and betrayal. It portrays the disintegration of the marriage of Helen Huntington, the mysterious tenant of the title, and her dissolute alcoholic husband. Defying convention, Helen leaves her husband to protect their young son from his father's influence and earns her own living as an artist. Whilst in hiding in Wildfell Hall, she encounters Gilbert Markham, who falls in love with her. So that is honestly a synopsis that I have just been obsessed with ever since I found out that there was even an Anne Bronte book, and I'm finally getting around to it. I'm very excited. I'm only 16 pages in, but I'm very, very hooked and intrigued of what is being said right now. So far from what I've read, this is actually in the perspective of Gilbert Markham, and I was surprised when I started reading this book because I thought it would be in the perspective of Helen Huntington. That is The Tenet at Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte, and I'm very excited to finish this, to get through this. Next couple of books, they are in no particular order, so we'll see how I will actually get to them. But the first 2 books are John Steinbeck. I am finally jumping back on this bandwagon. The first book that I have here is Grapes of Wrath, and this is actually technically a reread because I read The Grapes of Wrath in high school and I have not picked it up. I have not picked it back up ever since. I read this my sophomore year, and I remember liking it, but not really at the same time. And I remember it being kind of slow. However, there seems to be, I wouldn't say a resurgence, but John Steinbeck seems to be very popular right now in the booktube space that I'm in personally, and I love that. I really do. Specifically with the next book that I have on this list, which if you guys are in that same book space, you will probably know which book it is. The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck is set on the Dust Bowl migration of the 1930s, and it specifically follows the story of one Oklahoma family who are driven off their homestead and forced to travel west to the promised land of California. From their trials and their repeated collisions against the hard realities of this new American, Steinbeck creates a drama that is intensely human yet majestic in its scale and moral vision, tragic but ultimately stirring in its insistence on human dignity. I remember the ending being very bleak. Also very vividly remember images of just dust. Oh, you know what? There's a movie and I'm pretty sure we also saw the movie, so maybe my memory on that is being very skewed on what I remember from the book. Good thing I want to reread it. Like I said, I remember liking it in high school, but I don't really remember anything about it. And I heard that between these two books that I have with me, they're like interchangeable of like his best book. In the beginning of the synopsis, this is called The Most American of American Classics, which is very interesting having just read The Great Gatsby over the semester, which is also a contender to one of the great American novels. This is a nice follow-up. The next John Steinbeck book that I have is East of Eden, of course. Also, can I just say quickly, it turns out The Grapes of Wrath is actually going to be there's going to have a Netflix adaptation to it. I don't know if it's going to be a series or a movie. However, I've been seeing this specific cover with the Netflix logo somewhere on here, and I am so glad. I am so happy and blessed that I managed to buy this book before that happened, because I freaking hate those non-removable Netflix stickers, or just stickers in general on books, especially when the covers are really nice. I'm a sucker for good Penguin Classic covers, and I actually genuinely really like this one. Anyways, I also genuinely really like this one. One of the reasons why this one really called to me is because I didn't know about it. I had low-key sworn off John Steinbeck after high school, but what called me back to him was East of Eden and how it is a retelling of the story of Cain and Abel. And something that I don't really talk a lot about my channel, but like I think you could pick up on the books that I've read. I really like religious themes in books, specifically when they get philosophical, interpretive. One of my favorite books is actually Paradise Lost by John Milton. And if you know that book, you know. It is the adaptation, the main source of the story of Adam and Eve. So that is one of the main reasons why I'm actually very, very interested in East of Eden. Steinbeck, oh, this is considered his first book, and it has primordial power and simplicity of myth. I like that. This sprawling and often brutal novel follows the intertwined destinies of two families whose generations helplessly reenacts the fall of Adam and Eve and the poisonous rivalry of Cain and Abel. Okay, I love that even more. Didn't know that Adam and Eve was also going to be a part of this, so I'm very excited about this. Oh my god. So that is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. The next book that I have is Daniel Deronda by George Eliot. And if you are familiar with George Eliot, or have heard of her name, is because she is the author of Middlemarch. And I really loved Middlemarch as well, but I think that one deserves a reread because I read that in my undergrad and it's been a while. I remember really, really liking it, but I know that it does deserve a reread. But for right now, I want to read Daniel Deronda by George Eliot. I came across this book because I was actually a research assistant for a professor of mine who is working on an article on this book specifically. And what really interested me was the fact that her article touched on Gothic themes and other themes that are very similar to what I want to talk about with my dissertation. So seeing where that research was leading her and helping her get there was very exciting to work with. This is Eliot's powerful novel set in Britain, whose ruling class is decadent and materialistic. Its power likely to be threatened by politically emergent Germany. The novel's exploration of sexuality, guilt, and the will to power anticipates later developments in fiction and is linking its personal and the political in a context of social and economic crisis, gives it a special relevance to the dominant issues of the 21st century. I don't know why. I really don't know why, because this is British and the book that I'm about to talk about is American, but for some reason this is reminding me of The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. So this sounds very interesting. So to preface these next two books, I want to talk about real quick about my interest in what I want to focus on for my dissertation. And if you're new here, I want to specialize in 19th century American literature and hopefully early 20th century American literature. One of the main reasons why I want to throw in early 20th century American literature, mainly because of Henry James. I read The Wings of the Dove in high school, but in undergrad I revisited him with The Turn of the Screw. I revisited him with The Turn of the Screw, and I love that book. For Venice, I ended up reading the Aspern Papers, which is a shorter story, and I also really liked it. And that specific story is what really hooked me into wanting to possibly talk about him in my dissertation if I were to work my ideas into something broader that would go beyond Hawthorne. So with that being said, these next two books are Henry James. And one of the reasons why I want to add these to my TBR is because I'm most likely going to already read them for my comps exams if I do manage to stick with early 20th century. So I will be getting ahead of the game, ahead of the curve, I guess, if I do manage to get to these this month. And if I don't read them for my comps exam, then I'll just be reading them for funsies, and I win either way. So the first book I think is one of his more popular books, which is The Portrait of the Lady. The Portrait of a Lady. That title reminds me of a portrait of the artist as a young man, I think, by James Joyce. The pronouns in those titles are really important because of what it implies. But anyways, The Portrait of a Lady is one of his more popular books, but I have never read it, and I actually don't know what it's about, so we will find out together. Considered by many one of the finest novels in the English language, this is Henry James' most poised achievement, written at the height of his fame in 1881. It is at once a dramatic Victorian tale of betrayal and a wholly modern psychological study of a woman caught in a web of relations she only comes to understand too late. This actually sounds really good, up my alley. I'm excited. And the next one that I have is The Ambassadors by Henry James. And this one I think isn't as popular, but it is still very well known. And this one is about Lambert Strether, a mild middle-aged American of no particular achievement, is dispatched to Paris from the manufacturing empire of Willet, Massachusetts. The mission conferred on him by his august patron, Miss Newsom, is to discover what or who is keeping her son Chad in the notorious city of pleasure and to bring. But Strether finds Chad transformed by the influence of a remarkable woman. And as the Parisian spring advances, he himself succumbs to the allure of vast, bright Babylon and to the mysterious charm of Madame Vionnet. Interesting. This also sounds very interesting, and I'm excited to finally at least put it in my list of books to read for the summer. My battery's about to die, so I need to get to the ending. So I need to end this quick. These are all the books that I will be reading for the month of June. Again, they're big boys, so I'm hoping I could get to all of them, but we will see. If you are curious and want to follow along this reading journey, please consider subscribing. I try to post a video almost every week, so if you're curious about those, please consider subscribing so you can know when I post. I really want to try to hit my goal of reaching 500 subscribers by the end of the summer. So hopefully you guys could help me get there. If you like this video, please consider liking. I need to find a better outro situation. But anyways, I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.
You know I'm such a fool for you. You caught me wrapped around your finger. Do you have to let it linger? Do you have to? Do you have to? Do you have to let